Good afternoon. Welcome aboard. This is the Passball Show, as always brought to you by JohnPielli.com. Happy to be with you on Wednesday, the 29th day of November, 2017. The telephone number, if you want to be part of the show, is 732-364-3598. And once again, it's 732-364-3598. Anything that's on your mind as we talk about the world of baseball, sports, and unifying America. I have another message for the people of America a little bit later on in the program. We finished up yesterday talking about the situation in Tennessee with Greg Schiano. Obviously, because of the outcry, there's the decision that's made. We can't go against the public. The public is too strong. We give them too much power, and we're not going to go out of our way to do our own due diligence and figure out whether the public, in some cases, could be wrong. And I've said this before a number of times, that when you throw the court of public opinion at somebody, it's more of a situation of, all right, they're guilty without even getting a chance to defend themselves. And if you are accused of the most heinous crime in the world, you have the right to hire a lawyer, the right to go to trial. And you know what? If you're found not guilty, you don't suffer any consequences whatsoever. Sure, if you are accused of committing, a big time crime, then obviously the amount of money you're going to have to spend on lawyers is going to saddle you back a little bit. Even the people that are more financially independent end up going on some tough times when it comes to paying lawyer fees. But the bottom line is that we live in a world that even if you commit a crime, you have the right and the ability to somehow prove to the judge that not only that you didn't do it, but that there was enough reasonable doubt that you may not have done something. And obviously, in the history of the court of law, there have been many people that have been guilty of crimes, but have gotten off because of technicalities, or the case ends up being dismissed because there's not enough evidence to prove that they did what they did. And there's been plenty of people that, after the fact, have kind of gloated on the fact that, I did commit this crime, but I was found not guilty. And obviously a rule that sticks amongst the judicial system of the United States of America is that you cannot try somebody for the same crime twice. So once you're found not guilty, then it can't throw another trial at you, even if you admitted to doing it. However, when it comes to the court of public opinion, you could have thousands and thousands of documents and depositions and things that are written down and put on file in regards to the case against Penn State coach Jerry Sandusky, and not have your name mentioned on a single one of them. And then have an ex-coach who is being glorified for being a hero, and by the way, was not a hero, sitting on $7.3 millions of dollars because he decided to sue the school of Penn State, decided to name drop you, and all of a sudden your reputation is ruined. And honestly, if we're talking about a sue-happy society, if Michael McCreary can sue Penn State and come out with money, then Greg Schiano should be able to sue the University of Tennessee and be able to get some sort of retribution. You say, I was being slandered, and the general public believed I was believed in the slander, and you decided to take the side of the general public. And because of that, I lost the job. So, we have a crazy sue-happy country to begin with that can't wait to throw the next lawsuit. Why doesn't Greg Schiano go out and get his? He can. Eli Manning continues to prove really the type of person that he is. Seen in a cafeteria the day after it was announced that he wasn't going to be starting for the New York Giants anymore. And there's a good chance that his Giants career as their legendary quarterback has come to an end. And he's over there mentoring the young rookie quarterback Davis Webb. While I have no issues with Eli Manning the person, Eli Manning the Giant, his accomplishments, his Super Bowl wins, his 50,000 plus passing yards, his 200 plus touchdowns, his 210 consecutive starts, and the fact that he did not deserve this particular treatment. Maybe the Giants could have waited till after the season. Maybe they could have waited until there was just a couple games left. Maybe they could have given some indication that this was something that was going to happen over time and they wanted to see the other quarterbacks. I put that all into account, and I respect all the Giants fans that feel enough about all those things that I just mentioned. But like I mentioned yesterday, the fact that Eli Manning was on a losing team with not a lot of resources around him put him in two different positions. The first position would have been for him to play over his head, to put up very good numbers in spite of everything that's out against him. If he finds a way to complete the majority of his passes, he finds a way to not throw interceptions, he finds a way to not miss receivers by 5 and 10 yards at a time. And if you look at the way that Eli Manning was playing, and the answer was, wow, he is playing at an elite level, and the rest of the team around him sucks, then that would back up every reason why Eli Manning should not only play every single other game this season, but should remain the team's starting quarterback going into 2018. The bottom line is that didn't happen. And I can't point to the particular turning point. But at some point, either late last year or the early part of this season, Eli Manning became mediocre. And I understand Giants fans don't want to hear that, especially right now, because they're reeling off the loss of one of their star players and one of their favorite players to watch on a football field. The bottom line is Eli Manning was not performing any better than any other player on that field. The Giants, as they sit at 2-9, you may not be able to say that it's solely on Eli Manning, but it's on Eli Manning as much as it is on any other player on that team. The difference would be if Manning was finding a way to make it happen, putting up very good numbers, having a very good season, in spite of having no running game, no offensive line, and no wide receivers. Yes, there's receivers that are dropping balls. Yes, you're talking about a 3rd and 4th and 5th team receiver core. You're talking about an offensive line which should have been helped but wasn't in the offseason. And plus, some of the players that were dependent on the play have been hurt. But for the fans that don't want it to be the performance on the field about Eli Manning, let's make it about Eli Manning for a second. Would you agree that Eli Manning has gotten better or worse from 2015 to 2016? Do you think Eli Manning has gotten better or worse going from 2016 to 2017? And you can make all the excuses in the world that you want to. And listen, he's one of the most likable guys you're ever going to see. And if you work in the media, he's one of the more likable guys you're ever going to want to hear from. He's soft-spoken, he's honest, he's respectful. In 15 years, he has never thrown anybody under the bus. Remember, this is a guy that when he came up with the Giants in his first couple of years, had clowns like Tiki Barber and Jeremy Shockey throwing him under a bus left and right. Saying this guy can't play. And he handled that just as respectfully as he has handled what happened to him yesterday when he was told he's not going to be the starting quarterback and likely may never play another game behind center for the New York Giants. So in that regard, you could give him nothing but respect. And Giants fans that are going to love him for that forever should. And I'm not taking anything away from any of that. Has he played well this season? And the answer is a flat out no. And before you, as an Eli apologist, go out there and make all the excuses you can for him, look at some more tape. I don't know if he's got a fear of getting hit now because his offensive line is that bad and he's worried about it. He's releasing the ball too early to avoid getting hit maybe, but he's missing receivers left and right. He is playing like a second level or third level quarterback. When you throw names like Josh McCown and Tom Savage and Ryan Fitzpatrick and Trevor Siemian and the list goes on of quarterbacks that you would figure on a given season may not be regular NFL starting quarterbacks. Jacoby Brissett, Jimmy Garoppolo, Blaine Gabbert, Blake Bortles. On an average season performance-wise, you would say Eli Manning is better numbers-wise and is hands down a better quarterback than any of them. If you look at the numbers, quarterback rating, completion percentage, yards per pass, he's right in the middle of the pack with all those other quarterbacks. Does it mean that he's done? Does it mean that he deserves to get discarded to the side and treated the way the Giants have treated him as an organization? No. But I will say this. I can't say for a fact that they made a bad move here. The issue that I was getting at yesterday was talking about Geno Smith. Now, sometimes you tend to drink the company Kool-Aid. In other words, when a decision is put into play and you got John Mara involved and Jerry Reese involved and, of course, Coach McAdoo is involved, they're all coming to the conclusion that they have a decision that they're going to make and they're all on the same page and they're all on board for the reasons that were stated yesterday. The Giants are 2-9. They're not going anywhere. They owe it to themselves to see what they got in Geno Smith and with Davis Webb. So once that decision was made, you tend to get a little full of yourself. And if you listen to some of Coach McAdoo's comments yesterday, he was full of shit when it came talking about how they believe Geno Smith gives them the best chance to win. He drank too much of the Kool-Aid when he said that. And I go back and I listen to the comments, and sometimes I have a different reaction the second time I hear something. And I had a reaction that was different the second time I heard that. Now, that wasn't really what Ben McAdoo believed. That was him drinking the Kool-Aid and almost saying something he felt like he had to say as pressure from the general manager and the owner. Even though they all agreed that this decision should have been made, he's sugarcoating it. He's taking it to the next level where he's making his beliefs stronger than they really are. You're going to see Geno Smith, and good for him. This gives him an opportunity to prove if he still belongs in the league. And maybe a chance to show that he can make some adjustments and he could be a little bit of a different player. He may not be playing for his future with the New York Giants, but he's playing for a future in the NFL. And sure, if Geno Smith spent the rest of the season on the bench or played very sparingly, he'd have probably as much of a chance as he did this year of being somebody else's backup next year. Now, he's going to play. So he either has a very good chance of being a platoon quarterback or a team's backup next year, or he has less of a chance of being a number 2 in this league. Moving on, once again, this is John Pielli, Passball Show. Happy to be with you. 732-364-3598. We get you right up on the program if you want to call in. Talk about anything, baseball-related, sports-related, or related to America as we look to unify it and not divide it. I spoke a little bit yesterday about the Yankees interviewing Carlos Beltran, and they held that interview today, apparently early in the morning. And part of the backlash that I don't really understand, and I tried to touch on this a little bit yesterday, but I didn't really get into the specifics of what I wanted to say. You got people that follow baseball every single day, are on major networks and do nothing but talk about baseball. They have some knowledge, but in some cases they look very silly. They look very uneducated. And anybody that went out on any network and decided to say that Carlos Beltran cannot be a manager in Major League Baseball at this time because he just removed himself for the game, they are all of a sudden trying to define how long you have to be out of the game to be a manager in Major League Baseball. And I'm going to go over a couple other sports first before I bring into the many instances of Major League Baseball. You got the NBA, who had Hall of Famer Bill Russell as a player coach. Lenny Wilkins was a player coach. And of course, you have to go back a little bit further in the National Football League, but Curly Lambeau and George Halas were player coaches. Tom Landry was a defensive coordinator in the 1950s, but he was also a defensive back. Landry's running back was Dan Reeves. And Reeves was also a player coach in the 1970s. So it shows that it's happened, first of all, in 2 other sports. Bill Russell, Lenny Wilkins, Curly Lambeau, George Halas, Tom Landry, Dan Reeves. So what these baseball experts that were trusting so much in their voice and the factual base of what they're saying are trying to tell you that a player can't come out of retirement and become a Major League manager that first year. And all of a sudden we forget about Pete Rose, who was a player manager for the Cincinnati Reds from 1984 to 1987, or at the end of the 1986 season when he retired. Frank Robinson was a player manager in the 1970s, the first black manager in the history of Major League Baseball. Was still an active player. Joe Torre, player manager with the New York Mets. And you want to go back further, we'll throw out the names of Lou Boudreau, Mickey Cochran, Tris Speaker, Joe Cronin, Ty Cobb, John McGraw, Connie Mack, and Cap Anson. All active Major League players who also served as the team's manager. Jason Kidd jumped right out of retirement as a guard for the New York Knicks, and he became the head coach of the Brooklyn Nets the next season. Steve Kerr wasn't that far out of retirement, having never coached, took over the Golden State Warriors. Derek Fisher came right out of retirement to be the coach of the New York Knicks. I'm telling you, this is a good possibility, and there isn't anything wrong with it if a team decides to hire a manager right off the playing field. Because it's certainly better than what they have done for an extended period of time. They're hiring people out of the broadcast booth. They're hiring people out of just random spots in front offices. They're hiring people right off the street that aren't even working for a major league team. I.e. Robin Ventura. Was he coaching Little League? So if you're willing to go further and further away from baseball, what's wrong with going closer and closer to baseball? Who cares if Carlos Beltran hasn't managed before? He was essentially a player coach last year for the Houston Astros, who, by the way, won the World Series. So, I mean, if it's my choice, honestly, I don't think the Yankees put the best group of candidates out there. I would have thought that they would have put more of a widespread cast of people in there. And I don't know, maybe they've done interviews that are behind the scenes that aren't getting reported. Like I said, my respect for the media gets less and less. And my trust in them to be able to report every single thing that's going on as if they have all the information, I don't trust as much as I used to. So maybe the Yankees have put together a larger cast of candidates that have been reported. Because right now we only got, 5, 6? Rob Thompson, Hensley Mullins, Aaron Boone, Chris Woodward, Eric Wedge, and now Carlos Beltran. Not many more names have been thrown out there. Right now we're sitting on 6. So you're going to say that a managerial search, which, by the way, seems to be taking forever and has taken longer than any other managerial search in baseball, is only consisting of 6 candidates from the beginning? If that's the case, some people in the Yankees front office might be fired for stalling. What are they doing? Did they take a team vacation for a month and a half? I mean, at some point we'll find out that somebody is taking this job. And you'll find out why. There'll be a extravagant press conference, the announcement of the next manager. And maybe details will come through later on. And we'll find out that there are more candidates than are being reported. And the funny thing about it will be if one of the candidates or one of the next managers that gets hired, you find out You're like, wow, I didn't even know that person was a candidate. I mean, I still believe from a logical standpoint that you would want to bring in somebody with experience. And I'm not talking about major league managerial experience, but I'm talking about experience in a game. Maybe a top assistant coach for somebody. Somebody along the lines of, let's say, a Dave Martinez, who took the job in Washington. A Mickey Callaway type, who took the job with the New York Mets. Gabe Kapler with the Philadelphia Phillies. Alex Cora with the Boston Red Sox. And I'm not saying those exact people, but I would think that they would be, trying to pry different people from different organizations. Bob Guerin would be a respectable candidate. I don't know how well he would do. But I think when it's all said and done, I'm going to mention 3 things right now before I close this off. First of all, it wouldn't shock me at all if the next manager of the New York Yankees has not been spoken about yet. Yes, the media will get something. There'll be a couple reporters that'll really start to get a sense of what's going on. And if they decide to hire a candidate that hasn't been reported, it'll start to leak out a couple days before that manager is hired. But if I had to guess, you put a gun to my head, I say it's not just amongst these 6 candidates. Number 2, I think regardless of who gets the job, we're going to find out that there were a lot more people considered. You'll find that there were some people that we didn't even know declined interviews. We're going to find out that some other people interviewed that we didn't think did. And most importantly, whoever it is that's hired and becomes the next Yankees manager, get ready for the New York papers to roast them, make them seem like they are completely and utterly useless, and are going to give you an opinion right off the bat that they're going to do a terrible, terrible job. Because that's what they're there to do. They're there to ride whoever is sitting in the spotlight as a coach or manager of a New York sports team. Once again, this is John Pielli Pass Ball Show. Waiting on a cuckoo clock. Should be any second. And we'll talk about the halfway point of the show. We're going to spend the second half, or a good part of the second half, with another message to the United States of America and the people of America. My outstanding citizens. My hope is, and I've said this all along, is that we could form a third group of people that's different from the Republicans and from the Democrats. And my hope is, with that, we could have people that are more interested in the way God created everybody. God created us all as His children. And because of that, there is no reason that we should treat each other differently. Now, those who have given John Pielli a hard time for taking this stance and going after this topic are trying to bring points up that, hey, it just can't be changed. We are different. If I don't acknowledge that I'm different, somebody's going to tell me that I'm different. And what do I have to say to that? Well, I've spent a lot of time thinking about that, as we've gotten to officially the halfway point right here, the Pass Ball Show, brought to you by JohnPielli.com. Happy to be with you via Periscope and Facebook Live on the 29th day of November, Wednesday of 2017. So the bottom line is, I'm not completely ignorant to the fact that people are treated evenly, that people are not treated equally. I get it. But I've said all along that there's two ways you can handle that. Continue to put your best foot forward and be the best person that you could be. And treat others the way you want to be treated. Not the way that you feel you are treated. And if everybody steps up and does that, we're going to be in a better position. We're going to gradually move ourselves towards treating each other with respect. Because now it isn't a burden. Now it isn't a situation where you have somebody that's treating you mean or picking on you or saying mean things to you. And because of that, you've chosen to not be nice to anybody else. And obviously, I'm, talking a little silly when I use the word being nice. I'm obviously talking about the need to respect one another, the need to treat each other as we are equals, as the way God created us. Now, we have a lot going against us. We really do. All you have to do is turn on the news. All you have to do is turn on all these daytime programs that you almost seem to not be able to get away from. And then you turn on the stuff that's going on at night, and you got this news special and that news special. All focusing on similar things and different things, but they all have one thing as a common denominator or one thing in common. They're all dividing us. They're all making you want to hate people that are supposed to be your equal. And in some cases, people that you're saying were supposed to be your equal. Yet you want to treat them as if you're better than them. It's a vicious circle. And I'm not here to say that there's any way that we could get people to, quote unquote, be nicer to each other. But we can do something when it comes to these huddling up in little groups based off of whatever kind of card that you want to say. Whatever your difference is, you hold that card in your group and speak out as a group, saying it's our group against the world. And once again, it was never created to be that way. For those that feel that way and have gone out of their way to want to have their voices heard, it's unfortunate the way it's gone on. You can make your voice heard, you can throw your points out there to where people hear you, but you shouldn't want to talk in a way where you're segregating yourself or segregating your own group. If the thought is that you're not equal, well, you're also not allowing yourself to be equal because you're sticking to yourself. And I'm saying this with confidence as I'm about to speak. I promise you, if you seek out people that are different than you, or on the surface that may look different for you, they may act different from you, they may seem different than you, they may be perceived differently than you. All of that being true, you're going to find you have a lot more in common with those people that in your mind aren't like you. So take a day tomorrow when you don't have anything else to do. Maybe you get a couple minutes from your job. Maybe you're off early, or maybe it's before work. Seek out somebody that doesn't represent what your little clique is, what your group is. The group that, by the way, you segregated yourself and your group into. And have a conversation with a person that you don't think would fit your quote-unquote group. And what you'll find out is that person has way more in common than you ever thought. And when you've decided to categorize them as being in a group, you'll find that they seem nothing like you perceive them and the people around you perceive them to be. So please, make a better effort. Instead of huddling up in your groups and complaining and blaming everybody else that's not you, talking about your group being so superior, get a chance to know some people that you wouldn't normally take into your group and those around you would normally not want to accept. Because once again, as we look at the country as we see it, you're looking at, first of all, the only country that has all wakes of life, all different races and religions and credences and nationalities from all over the world to make up the premium part of our population. Yet you go to any other country, there's a look to them, there's a religion to them, there's a nationality to them. It doesn't exist in this country. There is no such thing as nationalism based off of looks or races or credences or nationalities. Because nationalism in the United States exists from the mixture of the people that we got. Once again, American cheese. Do you know what you're eating when you're eating American cheese? It's a mixture of just about every other kind of cheese that's all blended into one and sliced out for you. That's why when you eat it from different places or you have it from different companies, it tastes completely different. There are very few American cheeses that taste the same because they're all made by different cheeses. American isn't a kind of cheese. It's a blend of all different cheeses put together. And that's what this country is. So if you want, go back to watching your biased news. Go back to listening to these people that feel like they're standing on a soapbox, but all they're doing is preaching more divide. We all have a chance to change that. We all have a chance to do something about it. Maybe not stand up and yell and scream, but for once, I want to hear somebody say, I want to be more of an American than I want to represent a political party. Because once again, the two political parties that we have set up in this country are acting as if they're two distinct terrorist groups that are domestic in our own country looking to destroy us. And they are. They're destroying us stronger than any other terrorist group that's out there, foreign or domestic. And you want to keep saying, oh, I'm on the right side or I'm on the left side, and because of that, I'm more right than anybody else. Or if anybody disagrees with me, they have to be wrong. Another thing that God created us as, He didn't create us all as perfect. And I hate to say it, even as much as anybody can believe that their views are right or that they are perfect, we have great people out there. We do. And people intend to be right, intend to do things the right way. But at some point, we're all going to be wrong. And we have no choice because we're not perfect. You know, the greatest thing is we can identify that we make mistakes and try to use those mistakes to make us better and to teach others from making the same mistakes. But I've had enough of listening to people talk in a way where they claim to know everything. Bottom line is they don't. Nobody does. And if you really think that you and your own little group believes that you're better than any other group, I don't know how to get through to you. Because once again, God didn't make any one of us with the intention of us being inferior based off of our looks, off of our race, off of our religion. He knew people were going to stray, but he didn't create people with darker skin to force them to be treated differently. That was something that was done. That was man-made by the people he created. And God didn't endorse that. Nor does he endorse any of the others' treatment of other people just because they're not you. We'll go back at this point again tomorrow. So that's the message today as we talk about what can we do to unify America? What is it about? Perhaps putting together a platform or a group that's all about all inclusion. And that believes that a lot of the stuff that's going on in this country is going to lead this country into a civil war. And if I'm still alive while this civil war is going on, I'm just going to shake my head saying I know that this was going to happen. We got people that are at a point where no matter where you're coming from, what your wake or differences are, you're treating yourself as if you're so superior, and you don't care about alienating the fact that you're alienating everybody else that isn't like you. But anyway, I'm done with this part of the discussion. Once again, John Pielli, Pass Ball Show. Happy to be with you. Another thing I spoke about yesterday, we're talking about the Baseball Hall of Fame vote. And I said that, every year it becomes a big discussion and it goes out on, different people have completely different takes. Certain ballots, people want completely different people than others. And I think you have to look at it from the most logical standpoint. And this is a way that it hasn't been looked at. It won't be looked at through the whole voting process. And up until the day the announcement is made, which, differently from other years, we're going to know what and who every single voter voted for this year, which is different than in past years. So you may know the exact amount of percentages of the Hall of Fame candidates before the official announcement is made, which is good. I think everybody should be able to put a name on a ballot. For those that are going to decide to vote for Orlando Hudson and Jamie Moyer and Troy Gloss this year, you know what? They could be told to their face by the general public that there's probably up to 16, 17, maybe even 18 deserving candidates on this ballot, and they're only asking you to vote for 10. So your vote for somebody that it's an honor for them to be mentioned on the ballot, but would in no case at any point deserve a single vote, you may have cost somebody an opportunity to be a Hall of Famer this year. And I said all along, I'm looking at 4 candidates strong with a possibility of a record-tying 5th. We'll start out with Trevor Hoffman and Vlad Guerrero. Hoffman got 74%, Guerrero got 71%. So they're both close enough that you would expect them to get a couple more votes this year and put them over the top. And you got Chipper Jones, an extremely dominant player for many years for the Atlanta Braves. Respected for what he's done. Obviously, all those years being in the postseason from his rookie year of 1993 until 2005. His first full season, Braves win the World Series. He was a model of consistency. He hit over 300 for his career, had a 930 OPS, 468 home runs, 1,600 runs batted in, 1,600 runs scored, 2,726 hits. Was solid. A batting champion. Drove in 100 runs 9 times in his career. 100 runs scored 8 times in his career. Spent most of his time as a third baseman, but also played in the outfield when the Braves went out there and got Vinny Castilla for a couple of years. I'd have a hard time seeing Jones not make the Hall of Fame. And by the way, 2,499 games, just 1,409 strikeouts. He walked 1,512 times, so he walked more than he struck out, averaged less than 100 strikeouts a season at a time where strikeouts were starting to run rampant throughout Major League Baseball. So I look at the other candidate, which I think should be considered. I would say that there's no doubt that Chipper Jones is a Hall of Famer. So I got Hoffman, you got Vlad Guerrero, you got Chipper Jones. How do you not put Jim Thome in the Hall of Fame? This is a guy that played for 22 years, hit 612 home runs. And honestly, that should be enough right there. And I understand this guy never won an MVP. But for a series of years, went out there and hit 40-plus home runs year after year after year. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 40 home run seasons. Hit over 30 home runs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 times. And like I said, 612 home runs by itself should be enough to put somebody in the Hall of Fame. So I'd go from that point and I'd say that there's 4 candidates that pretty much should get in. So the problem will be is, number one, is baseball going to be strong enough to have players voted for by the writers, 75% of the ballot voting for 5 players, which, like I said, has only happened a couple times. And mainly the first couple times the Hall of Fame put a vote together. If I'm going to put my money on somebody, in regards to odds, I'd go with Edgar Martinez. The most deserved, but also most unlikely, I would put it on Barry Bonds. And my own favorite, 2 players that I have on my website, that I've compared them to other Hall of Famers, that I think should absolutely be in, are Fred McGriff and Curt Schilling. I'm thinking Schilling will get a little bit more momentum as we go forward. McGriff is probably going to get less. He may be a candidate just like Alan Trammell for the Veterans Committee vote years down the road. But those are 2 that I would vote for. I would vote for McGriff and I would vote for Schilling. And I would continue to do that until they got voted in. Most deserved, the guy who has the most home runs in Major League Baseball history. The 5th, if I had to put a number by the 5th player with the best chance of getting 75% of the vote, I'd go with Edgar Martinez. But I'll make a prediction, and I'll make this a Pielli's pick. I'll make it count as 4. In other words, for every player, if they're in, I get credit for a win. If they're not in, I get credit for a loss. And if somebody else gets voted in, then I get credit for another loss. So I'd go with Hoffman, Guerrero, Chipper Jones, and Tomey. I think it'll be 4 that'll get in this year. I don't think the Baseball Writers Association of America can get close enough on this issue to have 75% of its writers vote for 5 players. They may be able to do it with 4. They've shown the ability to do that before. I think Edgar Martinez will be a little bit short. I think Bonds and Clemens will probably stay around the same. I could see Curt Schilling moving up. But I'll set that up as Pielli's picks. I'll get a win for every one of them that got in, a loss for every one of them that doesn't, and a loss for anybody else that gets elected on the ballot that I didn't mention. So we'll put that down in writing. We'll count that against Pielli's picks as we get closer to the Hall of Fame ballot, which is usually announced the first week of the year, and it'll be in 2018. So we'll hear that then. A little bit of recap as we finish up the show today. We started out by talking about Eli Manning. Giants fans, you might be a little bit upset over what's happened, but I think the Giants had every right to do this, make this decision. Was the timing of it a little bit off? Yeah, probably. But Eli Manning didn't necessarily separate himself for the performance of the rest of the team. He's having a bad year. No better than anybody else on that team. And if the Giants want to take another look at a different quarterback, they got every right to do that. Talked about Carlos Beltran possibly becoming a manager of the New York Yankees and the silliness that's involved with people saying, oh, how can a guy come right from playing Major League Baseball to being a manager? Yet I'm able to throw out 11 names. 11 names of different player managers that existed in Major League Baseball. Most recently, Pete Rose, Frank Robinson, and Joe Torre. So if baseball was accepting of a player to also be a manager, they're going to be accepting of somebody playing his last game in a playoffs or in a World Series and moving into the dugout and taking over a team. Finished it off by giving you my Hall of Fame votes. Vlad Guerrero, Trevor Hoffman, Jim Thome, Chipper Jones. We'll be back with you tomorrow, right here on Periscope, as well as Facebook Live. God bless you, and as always, I'll see you on the other side.